I'm writing this at 10:30 p.m. on the day Marathon Server slammed the doors on eager players looking for a good time for free from its gameplay after a 4-day blowout in its extremely colourful version of Tau Ceti 4. I played for a good 5 hours, squeezing it into a busy schedule of my first week returning to work after breaking my back on day 2 of 2026, managing a crippling live service game schedule, and looking after 3 kids. And I had a pretty great time, I must say. However, you're not here for generalised comments on the game that isn't out yet, and I'm not here to gaslight you into thinking Marathon is a terrible game like half or all of social media has been telling you for the duration of the entire server slam. No, I'm here to tell you why I couldn't stop playing the game despite moments of frustration and rage that made me want to throw my PS5 out onto the patio like the clothes of a lover who's jilted me. Let's begin with the good. Marathon is a very, very pretty game with a fully realised style in a universe locked down tight with lore that's endlessly fun to explore. It really helps that this is a series that's decades old, so Bungie didn't have to do much work to fill in the gaps and make it feel real. What the developer did need to do is create an engrossing sense of style that ensures the world of Tau Ceti 4 is always interesting, no matter whether you're on your first, 10th or 100th run. As an extraction shooter, an engaging world with easily identifiable landmarks that's just as easy to traverse is essential. Bungie nailed this and then some, with a selection of maps packed with points of interest that are fun to explore and areas between that are still great to wander around despite not being deemed noteworthy by the game's cartographers. I absolutely love the use of colour. It's weird, alien, and exactly what I'd expect current fashion to look like in 2 centuries. Seeing bright green sewage tubes linking huge pink construction sites will never not be funny and or inspiring in equal measures. There's also just this sense of scale that never goes away. It feels unmatched, especially under the massive hauler that's bigger than any building in my little hometown, but is just a truck in Tau Ceti 4. The style extends to everything in Marathon. The guns, the character shells you play as, skins and AI contacts are all gorgeous in an ugly futuristic way that lands just right with me. And let's talk about those shells, because you'll be spending a lot of time with them. Each is almost a hero character, if this were a hero shooter, with unique abilities that apply to the extraction shooter genre. For example, the assassin can become briefly invisible, while the assault shell, whose name escapes me, has missiles and a shield. My personal favourite was Rook, the shell that looks exactly like a UESC enemy that are all over Tau Ceti 4, and it can disguise itself as one of them briefly to avoid or just completely escape combat. I think great care and attention has been paid to how these abilities work, and I believe they work well when played correctly. Sadly, some players just want to watch the world burn and take to shooting everything in sight without any nuance far too easily. I can't really blame them because it gets the job done, but I enjoy the design of these characters and I want to see their abilities used so well I shout with excitement when I play. Since this is a Bungie game, there's precious little to say about the gunplay outside of the fact it's good. Of course it is. This developer knows what it's doing in that department. I started out as a pretty poor shot, but got to grips with the game within the first hour. It feels slow and clunky to begin with, but you can pull off some truly intense gunfights when combining abilities with weapon swaps and direct headshots. The chunkiness applies to enemies too, making them oh so satisfying to take down. They sound terrifying with a heavy robotic noise akin to the guards from the Callisto Protocol, but it's the placement of your shots that will render the encounters with them easy, not a barrage of bullets as you might expect if you're a Destiny 2 fan. It's a deliberate targeting system that mirrors what's expected of you in Arc Raiders, but you're not punished too much for going for the bulk of the body if the head is too hard to hit. The robotic UESC enemies are a surprise though. They're pretty smart, sometimes mimicking a real player's voice and moving in a strange way so as to make you think they're another player in a Rook shell. I think more could be done to ensure players have enough ammo throughout a run though. Even when I brought most of an inventory's worth, I ran out quickly from killing all the insane robots. There's never enough in containers or lying around on the planet to make you feel like you're on top of everything. It made the game feel a bit like a survival horror title because I was constantly weighing up the choice of skirting around enemies to preserve items while wondering what the robots were guarding and if it was worth wasting the bullets, health and shields. The robotic enemies of the UESC are a huge part of the game's atmosphere and combined with friendly, in inverted commas, AI agents to ensure you're always uneasy with your lot in life. You're some random consciousness using shells to raid and attempt at a terraforming world on an alien planet guarded by intelligent robotic soldiers. These soldiers are convinced anything on Tau Ceti 4 is theirs, and there are hints that some sort of event not only wiped out anyone trying to settle there, it ripped apart chunks of the planet too. I've never been more intrigued to see where an extraction shooter goes with its story. This is something Arc Raiders isn't too good at, and where I see Marathon succeeding over its competitor, if Bungie follows through. Of course, there's so much more we haven't seen, which is why I reserve my final judgment and the review of the game on bonus action for the end of March 2026. What I can say, and I hope I've gotten across thus far, is that Marathon is an extremely enjoyable extraction shooter. It's got that special combination of great visuals, gameplay, audio, and storytelling of all forms that's too difficult to resist. Dun dun dun, but wait, it's not all good. Marathon isn't great when played with others right now. After all that praise, let's bring it down a bit. Outside of the tirade of attempts to make the Server Slam look like a failure from Twitter, Marathon fell short for me when I encountered other real players. The game has proximity chat, but I'm a dad who plays games when the kids are asleep. I'm not about to start shouting to randoms, "Don't shoot!" even though it probably wouldn't have helped. I got killed by almost everyone I ran into. The exception is one Rook player who saw I was also a Rook, bobbed up and down and left me alone. Without in-game barks for our shells, we're sitting ducks for the slaughter. It just baffles me why Bungie is so dead set against this type of solo and quiet player in its games, but it's the same in Destiny 2. I'm not surprised, and it's not a deal breaker, but I am disappointed. I was also disappointed every time I saw another player because I lost all my inventory. It would be so easy to implement a system to save loot for an in-game price, but I'll save that for another time. This is a definite downside for the game, and the point that made me want to quit. I didn't. Just to be clear, I didn't. But I stopped having fun until I went a good 20 minutes without seeing another player. This baffles me even more because Rook, my favourite shell, is a solo-only shell. I presume it's Bungie's answer to solo play because you can't queue with others when it's equipped, and it makes for the biggest challenge in the Server Slam, but the systems to support it just aren't there. To caveat this, Rook is a bit of a nasty shell for others. It's a friendly UESC robot on paper, but I could just as easily draw in enemies to others, use Rook's ability to avoid the combat, and pick up all the loot from whoever doesn't make it out of the encounter. I could go on and on about Rook, but what I want to stress here is that the part of the game I came to enjoy the most ended up being ruined by such a simple oversight. Proximity chat isn't for everyone, and an alternative needs to exist. It's why Arc Raiders is so popular among every demographic. I mean, the ambulance drivers who took me from my busted up car to the hospital play Arc Raiders. Like, they don't play Arc Raiders for no reason. They play Arc Raiders because they can chat to each other, but also tell others in the game when they're not chatting to not shoot through barks. It's in that game, so it should be in Marathon as well. And now, we discuss why Marathon really could go anywhere at launch. The biggest problem Marathon faces at launch isn't having enough players, it's having enough people supporting it with praise and reviews. For some reason, people love hating on new games on social media in 2026, and it's doing some serious harm. Gone are the days when developers could do a No Man's Sky and stay silent while cooking up the greatest game known to humanity. Game accounts now need to respond with feedback immediately, even if that feedback is some moron calling it Concord 4.0. I believe Marathon needs some additional features in order to survive in the long term, but they're not massive changes, not at all. A new system for helping death by nasty players feel less punishing, and a way to communicate that won't wake up my 6, 3 and 1 year olds is more than enough. It certainly seems like the yet to be seen endgame activity, Cryo Archive, will be a huge part of the game's future. If this area provides the right challenge and balance of fun, I think Bungie is onto a winner. Progress provided by AI company agents with contracts for you to complete and the gradual loot grind you'll churn up with every run are the key to success for this game. In fact, the key to success to any live service game in general is having a direction for players to move forward in, a constant feeling of adding steps towards a goal, even if it's just one item in the bag for every run. I hope that Bungie has done the right thing, but we'll simply have to wait and see once the game's out. Thank you so much for listening to this pretty in-depth explanation of my inner feelings on Marathon after marathoning its Server Slam. The game goes live for everyone, and can't stress this enough, reviewers as well, on March 5th, 2026. So don't listen to a single review until it's almost April. The full experience won't be live on day one, and you should honestly form your own opinion by playing if you're truly on the fence.